This past Friday, I had the opportunity to go visit a priest friend of mine here in the Archdiocese. This was a priest friend who has been struggling with alcoholism. It got to the point where last summer he was sent away from his parish to go to a residential treatment for a few months over the course of the summer and into the fall. And in returning upon that, he still has not yet been allowed to get his driver's license. So we were conversing, he was sharing with me about that experience. Everything he went through for a long period of time going through that struggle, but trying to keep it hidden, and it sometimes being semi-successful in keeping it well hidden from parishioners and friends and so on. Unfortunately, he had the experience of a couple of DUIs that sort of exposed that. But he talked about, it was in going to the residential treatment, and it was a Christian place, that finally the freedom that has come in finally bringing it to the light, and now that it's known, and inviting God into that place of vulnerability, of weakness, in that apparent failure. And the goodness, the graciousness, and the grace he has experienced in that. The freedom that comes with that he doesn't have to hide it anymore. And the graciousness and goodness that not only God, but even his own parishioners have graciously extended to him. And the hidden blessings that have come with that as well, the unexpected blessings. Since he can't drive, he has to be more dependent on parishioners to drive him around, and that's led to a greater amount of quality time with a number of his parishioners. He has to drive a half hour to go shopping. That's an hour in the car with them. And so that in that, he's not only experienced blessing, but in an even deeper way has been able to be a blessing to his people. As I was visiting with him, he kind of showed me around town, and every place we went to, of course, everybody knew him, and were happy to see him, delighted to see him. That it was a good, tangible reminder to me of hearing his story, that our place of weakness, of limitation, be a place of encounter with God. Our gospel reading today with these Beatitudes. Jesus names these blessings. They're unexpected places of blessing. When we think of blessings in the world and receiving blessings from God, we think of prosperity and health. We think of the comforts of life, and happiness, which are good things and are blessings from God. But that Jesus then names these interesting things where he names what don't seem as obvious place of blessings. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek, the weak. Blessed are the poor and the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who still thirst for justice and righteousness. Naming these places that don't seem to be places of blessing. And yet that's exactly part of the good news that Jesus came to bring. That those places of weakness and limitation can be and are places of encounter with the living God. It's to those places that he wants to go. As St. Paul says, it's in our weakness when Christ is most strong. When we see our limitations and allow Christ to encounter us there, that then blessing can be unfolded. But blessing in a way, perhaps, that we don't expect. Because you see, it's inviting God, it's when we intentionally invite God into our places of weakness, into our vulnerability, that there's also this deep experience, can be a deep experience of intimacy with God. Because an important part of intimate love, of intimacy, is freely choosing to share my vulnerability with another. and the other receives that with humble gratitude, with loving compassion. So when I invite God into those places of my weakness, of healing, it becomes a place of encounter with Him, of intimacy with Him, because yes, God knows all the things that I do, but when I freely share that with Him, then it becomes this experience of intimate love, where I can encounter the living God. And that He even goes further than that Jesus Himself is God coming down so that He Himself makes Himself vulnerable to us. That in His cross, where He's made weak and vulnerable, the ongoing gift of Himself in the Eucharist. That not only can we share our vulnerabilities with God, but God made Himself vulnerable so that He can, in exchange, share His own weakness, His own vulnerability with us. That becomes a place of intimate encounter. That our weakness encounters His weakness. And there is redemption, grace, healing in that place. That it's ultimately intimacy with God that becomes the source of healing in our own life. That when we invite God into that place that we need healing, the place of our weakness, of our limitation, even our sin and failure, when we invite Him into that place of our suffering, God will bring healing, either by healing the particular suffering that we're experiencing, or in intimacy with Him in that suffering, He will bring about an even deeper healing that we need, more perhaps than we realize. That when we look at our limitations and failures, at first it can seem a terrifying space. As my priest friend who I visited said, he said, a year ago, if you were to told me that everyone is going to find out about your alcoholism, he said that the idea of that, the fear of that practically destroyed me, he said. But now, as I said, become a place of healing, of freedom, an encounter with blessing and the grace of God. And this, by the way, is the secret of the saints, the secret to holiness. That every moment, every thing in my life, every experience in my life can be a moment of encounter with God. Including and especially my moments of suffering, of struggle, when I'm perhaps tempted to turn away when I'm most tempted to turn away from God, or to reject Him, or to resent Him. That rather that can be a place of intimate encounter, where His grace and mercy can unfold, where His blessing can unfold, where I can encounter and experience the beatitude of God.